Pete and Peter, how nice to be with you. Tell me, whose idea was all this?
Well, it came about, with Poole Cameron. He'd put a lot of projects on in the Rhythm 6 Festival some years ago, and we had a meeting, and Poole wanted to put a project together, and then we started looking at possible collaborators, someone who's,
someone who's
well versed,
someone who's here,
and Peter was the perfect choice, really. And Peter had contacted me because he'd been playing with Steve Smith and was interested in conical, and so it was a random connection, really, wasn't it, Peter?
I emailed Pete to see if he could give me any lessons of conical.
Big mistake. I've tried that too.
Yeah. And he told me to sod off. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to play with him now anyway.
That's the first lesson of conical, of course, is that you reject anybody who wishes to learn it.
That's right. That's right.
Amazing, isn't it?
That's true. Pete, that's how I think that's how it started.
Yeah, pretty much. That was the.
Having just enjoyed the music terrifically for about an hour and a half or something, the really naff question to ask you right now is, well, how much of that was improvised and how much of that was composed? Funnily enough, I don't think it's a very interesting question, that, because there's an old line which says that composition is a very slow form of improvisation and improvisation a very fast form of composition. But how much of that was improvised?
Yeah, well, I'd say a good amount. I mean, we're really trying to focus on creating roadmaps more than specific. Obviously, some themes and stuff like that become anchor points, but there's a lot of freedom in there.
That's
actually.
Good. And a theme might migrate from one roadmap to another place, on a different night. It could possibly go, because I remember Weather Report used to do that sort of thing. If their theme would turn up in the middle of something else in a different meter, played slower, faster.
I think it will. Although this is the first night, so
it's first night.
As yet, we don't know.
First night. And
well, it's that statement also. We had a few starting places that we intentionally kept incredibly loose.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the map is not the territory, so that when you actually occupy the musical space, as opposed to mapping stuff out in a sort of, cognitive way, then, at least I can say for myself, by the time I started to occupy the actual territory that the map was supposed to suggest I was to be in, it changed.
Yeah, we didn't realise there were hills and stuff.
Yeah. So you were dealing with the unforeseen.
Yes.
As we say. It was improvising.
Absolutely,
literally is what improvising
Ideally.
is. Yes, yes. And you surprise yourself sometimes.
And disappoint, Bill.
No, it's lovely in music, isn't it, when there is a surprise comes, because you're reacting, you're inputting and outputting at exactly the same time. Very unusual to react to what Peter's doing, Pete reacting to Peter, and Peter reacting to Pete, while outputting at the same time.
Yeah.
It's not so easy. It's not all beer and Skittles.
It's true, yeah. But I think having the ability to, influence and redirect and shape as it progresses, I think is a vitally important part of the whole process.
Do you feel him influencing and shaping you?
Yep. Yep. When we spoke earlier, I was saying the feedback loop for me is the one that goes out, whatever it is I've got going, which is not necessarily, it's just instantly formed, ideally, and it goes out, but it comes back with an extra substance, which may be an arched eyebrow, or on this occasion tonight, there was a fairly well placed wink.
Winks are great. Yeah.
That I thought was great, Pete.
I mean, that's one of the funny things about, when especially as a duo, for me, the duo is the perfect combination, because there's no confusion. As soon as you've got a trio, the lines of communication can be, they're just more complex. But as a duo, it's very simple.
I think so. It's, I thought about describing it as, once it's past the duo, then you're making space. If it's improvisational, certainly you're making space for another person. Whereas in a duo, I think you occupy the same space and find fitment within that.
That said, we are expanding and we're going to do a lot of collaborations with guests.
Well, that's fascinating. So that's coming up in the future.
That's exactly,
so you might be a trio or even a quartet.
Absolutely.
At some point.
Yeah.
For a one-off event.
Yeah.
That's a lovely way for musicians to work, isn't it?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
Quite luxurious in a way. You know, in the old days we used to get tied into groups and that was it.
Yeah.
You know, you just sat with Led Zeppelin for the next 25 years.
Yeah.
Kind of dull. Whereas I think this, sorry, Led Zeppelin. Whereas I think this kind of fluid way of making music is terrific. Is that what does improvising give you? What do you hope to get out of an improvisation or improvising broadly?
I think it's having the freedom and the ability to shape it. I think is a vitally important aspect of it, and not being restricted by preconceptions about what should and shouldn't happen.
Oh, yeah.
To be able to have an open palette and to paint as your mood dictates.
It's a bit like a potter with a wheel, isn't it? Going like this, he's shaping the clay underneath it, and because percussion is so colourful and so powerful, that it's almost more likely that he's going to shape you than you shape him. But the thing goes around. Yeah, of course.
I think that's where listening comes in.
It really does.
For me, it's all about listening, and I mean, even in the sense that we're not playing to an audience in this performance, but there's a different psychology when you actually the cameras are rolling, and it's completely different than rehearsing. And I think you listen in a lot more detail.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's but this thing about cognition is embodied. Even when, say, a Formula One driver's sitting on the grid and he's imagining what's going to happen at the first corner, and he embodies some of the moves in the system map and territory. I don't know, and for myself, I don't know if I'm even doing that. It's this balance. I think I like to think of, but this is post-rationalized of the balance between things that I know about and things that I have no idea about, and instantly trying to make them form like a well-formed sentence.
Lovely. Yeah. Lovely. And for you, that would be a good improvisation where that happens for you.
Yes, it's with the qualification that it can come out well formed, but not be particularly, of course, not necessarily lead anywhere.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So there's always some
Also comes
measure.
back to preconception, doesn't it? If you haven't got a preconception about what's going to happen here, then theoretically,
trying not
kind
to
of open.
Try. That's the thing about having opportunity and then outcomes. And outcomes, opportunity we've got 'em in a duo. Outcomes are unknowable.
Yeah.
I hope. I think.
So you're always sort of teetering on a borderline between chaos and kind of composition and sort of hysteria and surprise and all sorts of things that may be going on in the music.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure the audience really knows that. A lot of audiences, you say, or maybe you've noticed this, you say, we're going to improvise now, and you'll get a very cold reaction, because most people think improvising is something you do when something's gone wrong while you're waiting for the normal status to return.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's because
That's partly in common language, that's often how it's used.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's lost any context in society, I think. I mean, if you go back, through the centuries and you look at traditional musics around the world, such as Indian and different, different countries, improvisation's part of their cultural language, really.
It is.
It's still,
indeed.
And now, in kind of our environment, everything's compartmentalised in categories and in the form that things are delivered as products.
Indeed.
So I think that really dictates what the musicians, the wealth of what the musicians get to do, because suddenly a lot of the things that they would really want to do and explore are kind of restrained by the conformity of the system.
Yeah, very constricted and constrained by the product.
Yeah,
absolutely. Whereas this seems to be a process. Your group seems to be a process where
you're
more interested in that than actually having an outcome.
Yeah.
Which I think is a lovely way to go, and very common within jazz, of course, that sort of approach. I was going to say, what happens for you next?
Well, this is part of an artist in residence series.
Right.
So the idea is that we put different collaborations together with this. Obviously, the next thing in terms of a physical event will be the broadcast of this interview and performance, of course.
Yeah.
And then, I'm sure there'll be a lot of stuff around that. And then, then developing the artist in residence series in, finding collaborators that will work with us in the way that, you know, kind of fit in, you know, and are comfortable with.
Sure. I thought it might be interesting to ask you what you're thinking about when you're playing. It's so cinematographic, you know, in a way, so very filmic.
Yeah.
I thought these two guys would be perfect with a black and white screen, you know, in the old days when musicians used to accompany images. And in fact, some increasingly do just accompany images. But I just wondered what your, do you have a thought process going on? Are you thinking, wow, that thing that he's done is just really great, I'm going to mimic that, or I'm going to, what's going on in your brain?
Oh, that's
a big one.
That's a tough.
I've got Sky Sports. I'm watching the footy.
You might have Sky Sports.
Oh, that's a tough.
When's the check coming? No, it's.
Do you want to kick off with that, or?
I don't know if I can even answer that.
Yeah, it's a complex one. Yeah.
Maintain any notion of sensibility, because it's so. Well, of course, I presume anyway, Bill, you'll know that it's not necessarily that on so many occasions there's no real musical correlation between nothing that you could have described as being a musical correlation between a thought
and what comes out
and what comes out, and it's tough because it's the, you know, the idea of perhaps at times being reliant upon technique or known ways and familiar ways of being.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if it's bravery or foolhardy or of stepping away from that. And I mean, I had a bash at that tonight in the preamble to the.
And what was the outcome of your bash? How happy were you with your bash?
I can't. For me, it's always the same thing. I'm fairly miserable, and I can't really know.
Yeah. Pete, apart from Sky Sports, what are you?
I mean, certainly, I never. I mean, in the past, you know, I kind of performances not working out have made me miserable. But now I've philosophized a lot about. You know, what you're doing, why you're doing, when you do it. And for me, I don't really, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, and, you know, it doesn't change who you are as an individual. And so I think that's one perspective. And then there's the other perspectives of the technicality and the physicality, which you can easily and directly comprehend and put into words. And then there's the more spiritual or stuff that you can't put into words, the feeling, you know, the sensation. And for me, it's kind of, I'm thinking of the sensation and I'm listening to what's going on and trying to respond and react. But it's that, it's the sensation that's guiding me, really.
Yes.
And it doesn't have any words, really.
No.
That's right.
No, it's extraordinary why you pick up those strikers or beaters as opposed to those.
Yeah.
Because
these are louder.
In the moment, you know.
Yeah.
But also years of experience, of course, is guiding you there in the knowledge that this is more appropriate at this moment. That one's more
The other thing is, of course, that you need you know, a musical partner that listens. So without that, you know, we can get down to some quite delicate stuff. And bear in mind, that's our first, you know, punt at it. So, you know, I think with that, with someone that is also listening, that opens up massive, you know, tendrils of connectivity within the whole process.
I'm with you.
There are some things to avoid, aren't there, too, in improvising? My little limited experience, you know, there's some bad paths to go down, you know, endless repetition, for example. Yeah. You know, that's part of a problem, actually, with touring improvisers. Yeah. But after a week, you begin to feel yourself settling into things that, quote unquote, worked. Yeah. You know, so there's an audience, and the audience is feeding back, they go nuts, this is great, well, let's keep that, you know, which is how rock groups work.
That's right.
And it's difficult to avoid that sometimes, I think. Do you sense that sometimes?
I do.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I haven't done that many pure improvisatory scenarios.
And this is
really
as close as you have come to ever to that.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Interesting. So you're out there, Lockett.
Yeah.
You're out there on the edge.
Yeah.
Which is great. Great place to be. Drafty.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
It can go wrong.
Yeah.
Badly wrong. But it's lovely. Do you think we should fess up? That in fact we do know each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're trying to stay a long way away from me over there, but we do in fact know each other, and we've had working relationships in the past, haven't we?
We have indeed.
You and I have banged into each other somewhere.
Yeah.
How did that
And
happen?
it was. You came to the Tycho de Tabla gig at the Purcell Room.
All right.
That's how we first met. And then we met. You came back afterwards, and we were having a chat. And
Like you
then
do.
we came up with the idea of doing something, because I think you had a connection at Guildford on the Ton Master course.
That's right. I
Ton Master
subsequently went
course.
to Guildford University to study anyway.
Yeah,
Later
yeah.
on, funny
Oh,
enough,
yeah,
10 or
of
12.
course.
And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
keep, every time I walk
PhD.
past that building, I thought of the
Wow.
Lockett Bruford duo.
Great.
We were doing it that day or something.
That's how it all started.
And Peter, how did we meet?
I saw your beautiful face and
Oh.
heard your fabulous playing,
Ow!
and it was on a Kazumi Watanabe album, the Japanese virtuoso
Yeah.
guitar player, and it was you, myself, and Jeff Berlin that tried to inject the force of our personalities into the.
Did we succeed?
I think on one or two occasions we actually managed
Yeah.
to pull something together. Because
Yes.
remember, we played loads of it live
Yeah.
as
We
a band.
did. We did.
In fact, I remember doing very few overdubs on that album. It
Yeah,
was
you
all-
remember those days we used to go in
Yeah.
the recording studio
Yeah.
and all play 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4.
Well, that's
Cool.
how we did our Network of Sparks album,
Indeed.
pretty much.
Indeed.
You know, a few bit of pre-production, but
It's a brave way to go, and it's lovely that it's not
Yep.
not perfect. Aren't those imperfections just wonderful things?
you know what? I remember you saying to me when
no.
the album was mixed, it will take years for you to forget where the bodies are buried. And it's such a brilliant line, and I still say that to people, and it's just like it's a classic. And it's true. It's such a great way to put it, you know.
And furthermore, Bill, it was a highlight of my life.
Oh, get out of here!
No, it was. It was great.
I think musicians and listeners both get very hung up on this idea of perfection. That somehow there's something wrong with a wrong note.
Yeah.
You know, whereas most jazz musicians know it's only a wrong note, so long as I haven't harmonised it in a different way. You know, and that music can be all sorts of things. It's riddled with imperfections, and I
Yeah.
always feel sorry for the person who wishes to be perfect at music.
That comes back to the improvisation thing as well, because
Of course.
accepting what is wrong and accepting, you know, it's like accepting yourself, you know, as an individual. Sometimes you're wrong, sometimes you're
Of
right.
course.
There are good things and bad things about everyone.
Yes.
And it's the same about any, you know, musical performance,
Yes,
I think.
I think absolutely right.
Unless you can accept the whole shebang,
Yeah.
you know, it's almost
The good,
actually,
the good, the bad, the ugly. Yeah.
you might be able to do it, but you'll never see it. You know, and I think it's important to be able to. I had this discussion with Peter last night. It's very important to be able to experience it, what you're doing. For me,
Yeah,
personally.
and then all the gradations of the concepts of perfection or imperfection, and therein lies the subject of Bill. Your next,
My next book.
Your next.
Oh, you're
interview.
very kind.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, can I say what a pleasure it's been listening to you guys? Thank you so much, and for letting me interrogate you in this
Well,
vile and vicious fashion.
Thanks, Bill. It's amazing that you came down.
And we're very grateful you came down, and thank you very
Good to see
much.
you.